Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take, well, stacks of notes, user feedback, research, all that stuff, and boil it down into something useful for you. Today, we're diving into something pretty specific, actually. Photographic aesthetics. It's about getting that legendary Hasselblad XPAN camera feel, that super wide panoramic look, but, on your phone.
Yeah, and it's a great case study, really. It highlights this clash between, say, premium software features, these special modes, and what users actually expect, and crucially, what they're willing to pay. So our mission today is basically digging into one user's detailed notes. They reevaluated this digital XPAN mode on their phone. We're pulling out everything we can find on, the workflow, user experience, and whether it's actually worth the money.
And the source material is brilliant. It's mostly from this document called Notes on Photography, Part 214. What I love is how relatable it is. The user didn't test this in some perfect lab setting. No, they stress tested it during a recent grocery run. Real life, spontaneity, speed.
Exactly. An evaluation based on, actual real-world use cases, not theoretical ones.
Okay, so let's get into that initial experience. The user first tried this digital XPAN thing. They were rushed, didn't really get it. And the result, they hated it, said it was unsatisfactory. But then they tried again, a second attempt. And that's where things changed. They said it was significantly better.
Right, and what's really interesting is the tech didn't change. Nothing about the phone changed between those attempts. It was the user's understanding that shifted. That's the key insight here. The big aha moment, as you called it, was that they finally, quote, grasped how the Hasselblad XPAN mode is intended to work digitally.
But doesn't that sound a bit like a failure of the user experience design? I mean, if a fancy, expensive feature needs you to study it before you get a good result, isn't that kind of a problem with the software itself?
Well, it definitely raises questions about how intuitive it is up front.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But, if you think about the original XPAN camera, it wasn't simple either. It's this complex 35mm film camera, right? It physically exposed a massive negative across two frames, like 65 by 24 millimeters. Using it was an intentional act, a commitment to that ultra-wide format, which is about, 2.7.1?
Okay, so it's a deliberate process. How does the phone mimic that digitally?
It forces you to commit before you take the shot. That's what the user realized.
Yep.
This digital XPAN mode isn't just some crop filter you slap on afterwards. No, it makes the sensor commit to that specific aspect ratio right from the start. It locks the view, maybe crops the sensor data instantly, often applies some special Hasselblad-branded color science too.
Ah, I see. So the first time, they were treating it like a normal photo you could just adjust later.
Exactly, and the frustration came from that expectation. But once they understood, okay, I have to compose for this wide view, commit to it in the camera, kind of like the old analog way, then it clicked. It wasn't just a filter anymore. It felt like a proper, deliberate photographic mode.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yep.
The aha moment was accepting the philosophy behind it. But even after getting the idea, the user still had some pretty sharp feedback on how to improve the execution. They weren't treating it like a gimmick. They wanted it to be a tool they could actually rely on.
Precisely. And relying on it means two things: better aesthetics and critically much faster access, improving the workflow.
Let's tackle aesthetics first. This is interesting because it kind of goes against simulating the film look. You know how old wide lenses often have that darkening at the edges? Vignetting. Well, this user specifically said, get rid of the digital vignetting simulation.
And this is where you see them shift from wanting a perfect simulation to wanting practical, clean digital results. The note basically says, yeah, vignetting might mimic lens flaws, but digitally adding it just feels fake. And worse, it can mess up your composition at the edges. They preferred using the whole full screen space for information.
So ditch the simulated flaws of film for digital clarity.
Pretty much, yeah. Instead of the vignetting, they suggested just putting a simple line border around the final picture, which is two things, really. It keeps that distinct XPAN framing. That's the whole point, after all. But it also gives you a cleaner, sharper image where you can see everything clearly. It's choosing digital sharpness over maybe analog nostalgia.
Okay, and now back to the grocery run, the practical side. This seems to be where the user got really passionate. The biggest demand was about speed, workflow efficiency.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. If you're trying to grab a quick moment, like, that long view down the cereal aisle or something, you just can't be fumbling through menus for 15 seconds. It doesn't work. So the demand was clear: a dedicated shortcut or physical button action.
Right. completely bypassing the menu. Just boom, straight into XPAN mode, take the picture.
And this really gets to the heart of the feature's actual usefulness, doesn't it? If you have to tap through multiple screens, it's instantly useless for anything spontaneous, anything that moves. For this user to see it as genuinely valuable, worth the phone's high price, it needed to be instant. That need for a physical button really highlights the gap between a software novelty and a truly functional tool for photography. Capturing that decisive moment, the one you might actually see on a chaotic grocery run, needs immediacy.
Okay, so the user figured out the intent, suggested fixes for the workflow. Makes sense. But now we hit the wall. The big conflict for anyone into niche mobile photography.
For me.
The money. Is this one cool mode worth the price of the whole phone?
The notes are really blunt here. The user says paying, MYR 3,000 to 4,000. That's Malaysian ringgit. Paying that much primarily for this one specific feature. It's a tough sell. Very tough.
Yeah, let's just pause on that figure. MYR 3,000 to 4,000. We should probably contextualize that. We're talking a significant chunk of change, especially when you think about what else you could buy.
Exactly. And the notes make that connection directly. For that kind of money, MYR 3,000 to 4,000, you could get a decent mirrorless or DSLR camera.
Yeah.
And that comparison is just devastating for the phone's value proposition, isn't it? You're paying this huge premium for the convenience of having that aspect ratio in your pocket. But the same money buys you a dedicated camera, better image quality, way more control, real lenses. It boils down to convenience versus actual photographic capability.
That reality check seems to have pushed the user towards looking for alternatives, which is really helpful for anyone else trying to get this look without spending flagship money. What were the two options they came up with?
Right. Two distinct paths. The first one is just pragmatic, really, financial. They suggested looking for used models, maybe older versions from the same brand, that already have this XPAN feature built in. It's basically trying to get that specific software experience, the color, the committed workflow, but, at a much lower price. They still value the integrated thing, just not at full whack.
Okay, so hunt for a bargain on an older model. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And the second path, that sounds more like a manual DIY approach, bypassing the special software altogether.
Yeah, the second option is almost brilliantly simple. Forget the fancy software. Find the cheapest phone you can that has a decent ultra-wide lens. That's the key hardware bit. And crucially, one that lets you shoot in something like the CinemaScope aspect ratio. That's usually 2.39.1. It's not exactly XPAN's 2.7.1, but it's pretty close. It's a wide starting point.
And then just crop it.
Just crop it. Manually. In editing software afterwards, crop it down to the exact XPAN ratio you want. So you're using cheap, common hardware, the ultra-wide lens, which loads of phones have now, and you're replacing the expensive proprietary software with, 10 seconds of your own time in an editing app.
Wow, okay. That really lays bare the core tension. Option 1, pay a lot for the integrated software convenience and speed. Option 2, save money, but pay with your time and effort for every single shot, and you lose that instant capturability that the dedicated shortcut was supposed to provide.
Yeah, and you, the listener, have to weigh that trade-off. Is the money saved really worth adding, say, 30 seconds of editing to every single photo?
Right.
That time is the hidden cost of the manual way. If you only take a couple of these wide shots a week, maybe it's totally worth it. Save the cash. But if you imagine taking 50 quick shots on that next grocery run, doing it manually could get old really fast. It becomes tedious. So looking back at this whole journey, we went from initial confusion about the feature to the user finally getting that deliberate, committed, digital XPAN workflow. Then we saw the specific suggestions for improvement, lose the fake vignetting, give us a shortcut, make it fast. And finally, we hit that wall of cost, leading to these two alternative paths. Hunt for use tech or go the DIY cropping route.
Yeah, what really stands out is how this user's experience kind of demystifies these specialized features. It puts the choice squarely in front of you, the listener. Do you pay that big premium for the integrated speed and maybe the specific look of a proprietary simulation? Or do you save your money, use the basic ultra-wide hardware that's widely available now, and just invest your own time in cropping to get basically the same visual result? And that brings us to a final thought, really, that second path, manual crop. It assumes the only thing that matters aesthetically about the XPAN mode is the aspect ratio itself, 2.7.1. If that's true for you, then maybe all the other stuff that makes the feature premium, the special color science, the digital lens effects, whatever else they bundle, and maybe it's just expensive window dressing. So the question to ponder is, are you paying for a specific look, or are you paying for the convenience of getting that look instantly? And just how much is that convenience really worth to you? Something to think about next time you're maybe standing in line at the checkout.